When a society passes a law about what a citizen can wear on their head, or the architectural shape of a building, we like to pretend it's just about civic order, like a simple zoning law.
Right. It feels clean, bureaucratic and manageable.
Exactly. But then you look closer at French bans on religious symbols or the Swiss ban on minarets, and suddenly those rules look less like bureaucracy and more like a civilization having a profound identity crisis.
Welcome to the debate.
It really is a fascinating dynamic. Today we are exploring the cultural friction between the Islamic Ummah, the global Muslim community, and the West. I look at this and see Western societies masking a massive spiritual emptiness by aggressively pushing for secular assimilation.
Right. And I look at it and see something deeper than just scapegoating. I see a fundamental philosophical incompatibility between the two cultures, which gets heavily amplified by the Muslim diaspora's own struggles to build institutions in a new world.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective.
Sure.
Thinkers like Murad Hoffman have argued that the West has essentially replaced spirituality with a cult of pleasure, meaning a good life that is measured purely by material consumption, right?
Mm-hmm. Materialism at its core.
Yeah, because postmodern societies struggle to find meaning beyond just buying things. They create a target. So the hijab or the minaret gets banned, not because it's a real threat, but because it highlights the West's own lack of an absolute moral compass.
That is a compelling argument. But have you considered the structural design of the West? I come at it from a slightly different way.
Oh, how so?
Well, this isn't just an economic or spiritual anxiety masquerading as philosophy. Post-Enlightenment Western identity survives by keeping religion strictly private.
Okay, so public versus private space.
Exactly. When a culture introduces absolute religious symbols into the public square, it threatens that fragile secular consensus. Those zoning laws aren't just city planning. They are the immune response of a secular society trying to reject a spiritual framework it just doesn't know how to process.
Wait, but if the West is supposed to be this hyper-rational, data-driven civilization, why are they panicking over the shape of a roof or a piece of fabric?
Because it's a structural threat to them.
But if it's just an immune response, it feels, like an irrational panic over changing demographics rather than a genuine philosophical disagreement,
I hear that, but it is a panic. Because the definition of the public sphere is fundamentally shifting, and you see the casualty of this clash right in the Muslim diaspora itself. Look at the generational divide in Europe right now.
Oh, you mean between the first wave of immigrants and their kids?
Yes, exactly. The first generation of immigrants didn't build modern, context-aware institutions. They just tried to survive. And that left the post-9/11 generation completely vulnerable.
That's a fair point.
Right? They are caught in a crossfire between an imported traditionalism from their parents that doesn't fit their daily lives and a Western society demanding total erasing assimilation.
But wait, that philosophical clash isn't just paralyzing them, is it? It's actually sparking evolution. Look at the third generation in places like Brussels.
Well, it's a struggle.
It is, but they aren't hiding. They are successfully using the West's own modern civic tools, like peaceful protests against niqab bans, to demand their civil rights. They aren't rejecting European society. They are engaging with it using its own democratic rulebook.
They are engaging, yes. But those protests also highlight a desperate struggle for an identity that neither their parents' homelands nor their current European societies fully support.
Which is exactly why the solution has to be a mutual exchange, not just one side assimilating.
Mutual exchange? How would that work in practice?
Well, figures like Charles St. Prot and even Prince Charles have pointed out that Islamic spiritual wisdom could actually act as an anchor for Western materialistic emptiness.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's a reciprocal fix. The Ummah modernizes its civic engagement, like we see with the youth, and the West borrows that spiritual grounding to cure its cult of pleasure. Integration without losing identity.
Elite dialogues of civilizations are wonderful in theory, I'll give you that. But I am not convinced by that line of reasoning.
Why not? It seems like a natural bridge.
Because a postmodern society inherently rejects the absolute moral frameworks that Islam offers. You can't just plug Islamic spiritual wisdom into a societal machine that fundamentally questions whether absolute truth even exists.
So the foundations are just too opposed.
Precisely. The philosophical hurdles are monumental for both sides.
It seems we are looking at the exact same structural friction, but predicting very different outcomes here. I maintain that mutual intellectual enrichment is possible if the West confronts its spiritual void and the diaspora continues to modernize its civic approach.
And while that is a beautiful potential, the tension between postmodern relativism and absolute religious values is deeply entrenched. Finding a bridge between those two worlds is an incredibly steep climb.
It really is. And it leaves us with a profound question for anyone studying how civilizations interact.
Absolutely.
How do societies achieve genuine integration without erasing the core identities of the people living in them? Because when you look closely at those civic bands, you realize they aren't just bureaucratic paperwork.
No, they certainly aren't.
They are the visible boundary lines of how we define human meaning. That is all the time we have for today. We encourage you to keep exploring these crucial civilizational questions.